Hi, everyone. David Aragona here with Craig Milkowski. One of many graded stakes on Saturday at Keeneland that'll be serving as a Breeders' Cup prep is the Grade 2 Woodford, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf, serving as a prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint next month. And Craig, we've got an international shipper in this race, the number 2 Golden Powell, though a U.S.-based one because he just went over there for one start. This 3-year-old will be stepping up against older horses. He's listed at 4-5 on the morning line for Wesley Ward. Definitely a horse with a lot of hype around him, a big following, but he was pretty disappointing last time going over to York to race in the Nunthorpe. So does he get back on track here coming to the U.S.?
We'll dive deeper into that. I don't think so personally. I've never been the biggest fan. Just kind of scrolling through his PPs when I see who he's run second to, it's not, or who's run second to him. It's not exactly the most impressive lineup of turf sprinters. He is just a 3-year-old taking on older horses, which he did last time at York, and that didn't work out very well.
And I think one of the things that we have to kind of dissect with Golden Powell is the trip that he's going to get. And let's transition to the Timeform US pace projector to see who's going to be on the early lead in this race. And I don't disagree with this too much, Craig, that the number 4 Firecrow has a ton of early speed. And I don't think that Golden Powell in his prior US starts has faced a horse with the early zip of Firecrow. So it's going to be interesting to see if John Velasquez on Golden Powell is really intent on getting to the front end, or if he does let that horse go and just slots outside him, as this pace projector suggests.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And even if he does go, Firecrow's drawn to the outside, which I think is a little bit of an advantage here because he could just sit right off his flank if he goes fast. It's not like Firecrow is a need to lead type. He's one on and off the pace. So I think Golden Powell's really got his work cut out here for a 4-5 morning line favorite.
And as we take a look at Golden Powell's PPs in Timeform US, it's pretty obvious that he has never been headed in the early going of his races. Even if you watch those 2 European starts, he goes to the front end and makes them come catch him. They did catch him in those 2 starts overseas, but he's been nearly perfect on turf in the United States, setting the pace in those races and just going on with it. He clearly does have a lot of early speed, but Craig, he is a 3-year-old stepping up against the older horses. And from a speed figure standpoint, for a horse that's going to be odds on, most likely, he doesn't have a big edge over this field.
No, he doesn't have an edge at all. And he's also doesn't have an edge in the early pace figures, which is why he's not shown on the front in the pace projector. Now, I'm not going to be shocked if it's a Wesley Ward horse. If he comes out, goes right to the front, sets a fast pace, and runs a 120 Timeform US speed figure. But at the short odds he's going to be, that's not something I want to bet on personally. Like I said, when you look at the horses he's beaten here in the States, and Fauci and Cowan and Omaha City, doesn't exactly strike fear in the heart of Breeders' Cup contenders, I don't believe. But he's won them all easily. So I do think he's a bit of a wild card, and that's not something I'm interested in at a short price.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype around him when he went over to York to compete in that Nunthorpe last time, and his performance was pretty disappointing. He got his firm turf course that he wants, 5 furlongs over a straightaway, you would think would be right up this horse's alley. He did show plenty of early speed. If you watch the replay of that race, they went something like 20 and change for the opening quarter, I should say, the second quarter after they start with that start with no run-up in Europe. But a horse that was also right up on the front end with him, Winter Power, actually won the race, so it's not like it fell apart. Golden Powell just didn't quite have the stamina to go with those European sprinters. And I do think he has a big class question to answer here, because there are 2 legitimate older rivals, and one of them is the number 4 Firecrow. And Craig, I'll let you talk a little bit about this horse. He's got arguably the best speed figures coming into this race, and it just seems like since they've transitioned him to become a turf sprinter, he's really come into his own.
Yeah, he ran really nice on Preakness Day. He got a 121 Timeform US speed figure in his return to turf. He hadn't been on it in a while, I don't believe. And then he had a layoff of almost 4 months, I guess it was. And he came back at turf at Parks in the Turf Monster, and just over a really boggy course, he went right to the front. And for me, even though he still ran a 119 Timeform US speed figure, that was just a goofy race. It was won by a just monster long shot in Hollywood Talent. It was just a soft course, tough to make speed figures. So I'm expecting him to return to his top level today and maybe even run better than that 121. And I do like the post draw. I'd be a little more leery if he was drawn inside of Golden Powell. I think that might put some extra pressure on him, but I like where he sits in this spot.
Let's take a look at that victory too back in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint at Pimlico, because he was pretty game to get the job done here over a good horse in Critical Way. That runner is in very good form when they competed against each other. And Firecrow, he did show the ability to stalk in this race, and he was game to get the job done here. If he repeats this kind of effort, I think he's going to be really tough, because there are some questions about the other two runners in this race that are going to take money coming in from overseas. And Firecrow, like you were saying, he's got that recency where he got in that prep at Parks last time, coming back just 2 weeks later. As you were saying, I'm not going to put too much stock in that loss over that course with a lot of giving it at Parks. I thought he was still pretty game to hold on for fourth after he was passed at the top of the stretch. So I do think Firecrow is a major danger in this race. The other horse, though, that's one of the older runners that will take plenty of money is the number 6, Extravagant Kid. And there's just so much to like about this horse. He's a really admirable runner, as you can see from his career box. He's been in the Exacta in 31 of 52 lifetime starts, just a really hardy 8-year-old. He had a pretty ambitious campaign overseas this summer, as Brendan Walsh sent him first to Meydan in the UAE, and he won that Group 1, the Alco Sprint. And then he put in a really respectable effort at Royal Ascot to be third in the King's Stand. Craig, anytime an American sprinter or an American turf horse of any kind runs so well in group stakes races overseas, points them out as being pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. He certainly ran well. I don't remember. We don't show the odds in our past performances, but that win at Meydan, I think he was a pretty big long shot that day, if memory serves. But he ran a 120 time form US speed figure. He backed it up when shipped to Ascot for that King's Stand, even though he was third. He was only beaten 2 lengths that day. And I do think he's a strong contender. I know this was a horse we discussed on the Pacecast many times because we couldn't figure out why they kept running him on dirt, because we both clearly thought he was better on the turf, and hopefully that's where he's going to stay as an 8-year-old, because that's where he does his best work. And I think he's got a real shot in here, as you obviously do too.
Yeah, some might be concerned about the fact that he was 14th out of 19 last time when they tried that Group 1 Darley July Cup. Watching that race, I wouldn't get too down on Extravagant Kid for that, because unlike the prior effort where they were going 5 furlongs in the King's Stand, he was trying 6 furlongs in the July Cup. 6 furlongs in Europe is much more demanding, especially over a turf course that wasn't quite as firm as it was at Ascot 2 back. And he was actually in the mix until the last furlong, and he just didn't quite have the stamina to go with those European sprinters who are more of the 6 to 7 furlong types. So I'm willing to forgive Extravagant Kid for that. And I just think if he comes back to the U.S. in the same form that we saw from him back in the spring or summer, he's going to be really tough in this race. And he's got good form at Keeneland in the past. He was actually a very close second in this race last year, and then followed it up with a 4th by just a length in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, which was run at Keeneland in 2020. So I think Extravagant Kid makes a lot of sense here. Let's throw up our picks for this race. As I was just alluding to, I went with the number 6 Extravagant Kid in this race. He's listed at 5-2 on the morning line. I think that's a very fair price on him. He likely will be the second choice to Golden Powell, who does figure to take the bulk of the play in here. Craig, you're going for a slightly higher price with Firecrow, who is listed at a generous 9-2 on the morning line.
Yeah, we'll see if he is actually 9-2, because it's a 7-horse field, but I would be shocked if any of our top 3 didn't win this race. The other 4 look like pretty rank outsiders. So I went with the longest price of the 3, and I'm just really trying to beat Golden Man in here.
Yeah, we're both on the same page with trying to beat Golden Powell, who likely will be the odds-on favorite. The 3-year-old facing older horses trying to cement his status as one of the favorites for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It should be an interesting Woodford on Saturday at Keeneland. Good luck if you're playing this weekend.